It was a summer morning. I was staying at Grandma's house, the place where I felt most at home. However, that morning, I was just a 6-year-old sulking because as a June, my grandma sent me back from the breakfast table to wash my face, brush my hair, and change my clothing. When I came back, she explained in her powerful yet kind tone, we have to present ourselves to each other and the food in the best shape possible. Food gives you John. I didn't understand what John meant, but I nodded. It took me years to understand she was teaching me about our oneness with the world and the essence of life. Another day, in a bright summer noon, I walked with her to the bakery to get fresh bread, as we did together most days of summer. On our way there, we saw a piece of bread, which we call naan in Farsi, on the ground. Someone was probably walking back from the bakery and dropped a piece of their lavash bread. Azizjun picked it up carefully, moved it toward her forehead, and whispered something under her breath. Then she put the bread respectfully under a tree for birds to eat and told me, no person should walk on bread. It will take barakat or blessing of life out of life. None gives you John. I was 6 and I still didn't understand what this John was. But never again I walked over a piece of bread in my life without picking it up and showing it respect. As a kid and even a teenager, I watched my mom, a modern engineer and an artist, spend days preparing a specific food for spring equinox. It seemed odd then. Why is mom spending 7 days to make food that has just one ingredient? She patiently soaked the wheat, let it sprout, ground it slowly, and took all the sap out, then boiled the sap for hours and hours until it became samanu. We put it on our haftzin, a colorful symbolic table we lay every year for the moment of the spring equinox that we call Nowruz. Every item on the haftzin is a symbol of life and prosperity, but we also put items that represent bitterness of life, such as vinegar. I wish I knew how important that patiently moving, respectful process of making the samanu was. Days of waiting, slow grind, slow boiling the sap. John is the essence of life, created through taking your steps in harmony with nature. We needed the John in everything we ate. And how deeply now I wish we still had John in our food. In all indigenous cultures in Iran, barakat and John are required, respected, and needed in every aspect of life. It was years later, when I became an immigrant living in the US, working on my PhD about experiences of climate change, that I understood how deeply we feel the absence of John in our lives. I went back to my ancestral roots, working with elderly women of Saman in central west of Iran. This beautiful 5,000-year-old indigenous agricultural community in Chahar Mahal and Bakhtiyari province of Iran still reveres its food traditions, and I learned how hard the experiences of climate change has been to the John and barakat of the food. The elderly women of Saman were mourning the loss of a true zero-waste circular food system and its sacred traditions. They told me, we never threw anything away. We got our pace from the earth. We moved faster and worked harder in the spring, and then we slowed down in the winter. Making bread took days. That was the food that had John. It was alive, and we felt alive eating it. Now chemicals and plastics are everywhere. They took John out of our food. We don't move with the pace of nature anymore. I feel that in my heart. These days, living in a megacity like Los Angeles, it is easy for me to get caught up in the doing culture and forget the culture of being that I belong to go home, to go back to myself, I take momentary pauses in daily life. I take photos and videos of a moment of life where I feel being is represented. It gives my day John, and I can't imagine my late grandma smiling at me through the rays of sunlight.